Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Hey, so you want to learn how to shoot a bow? This is part 2 of my series on ways you can get started, things to look at. And my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101. And today we're going to talk about a couple different aspects of learning how to shoot correctly. In the previous one, we went over a few things like your stance and a few things like that. Well, today we're going to go over a few more things. We're going to go over first as where to anchor your release. You know, what part of your face do you want to go onto? And I have a little video. I'm going to go ahead and share that and let you listen to it. And we'll kind of talk about it as we go along. So let me go ahead and share this out. And let me go ahead and start it playing.
All right, now I'm going to show the place that you're going to anchor. Now it's going to be this knuckle right here. It's going to go right back here because it's a little bit different depending on what you're doing. How this hand position goes does not matter, as well if you have your 3 points of contact the same, it doesn't matter on your face where it's at. So we're going to hook up here, go through my process of gripping here, and draw back. Get my kisser button, my nose, and my peep line up where it needs to be. Now you notice where this hand is at. It's right there. So now when I get ready to shoot.
Now, if you notice, for those listening, my knuckle on my index finger is right behind my jaw. There's a little pocket back there. That's where it's sitting. It's bone on bone is going to be most consistent.
I can put this over here. Okay. Okay, now where are you going to anchor on your face? We're going to start off.
Now I've switched releases to a handheld, or some call it a thumb release. It's incorrectly called a thumb release because you don't actually fire it with your thumb. Pulling it with your thumb is not the best way to do it. But we're going to go over how I anchor. As long as I have the points, you'll see.
This time with the handheld release, it's going to be a little bit different. But because I have a kisser button and my tip of my nose and the peep, all those line up. This doesn't matter where you anchor on your face. If you want to have a little different anchor, you'll have to change some of this stuff. So I'm going to go through my shot process, draw back. Now, put the kisser button, if you're using the kisser button, tip of my nose is on the string, and I'm seeing through the peep. Now, because my natural position here, that target's a little bit high, I have to bend back a little bit. And now, you notice where this is at? I'm using my ring finger to anchor right at the back of my jaw, right below my ear. That is where you're going to anchor this one.
Now, that is a couple of the different ways I do it. There's many different ways. You can go into, there's lots of ways. Each person's a little bit different. Some may feel more comfortable with their hand not quite rolled so far over. You know, that's just one of the things that you have to learn and figure out what you want to do. Just be consistent. That's the key, is consistency. If you anchor the same way every time, you're going to do that. You can have, well, you possibly could have the same shot every time. Not always, but you may be able to accomplish that. There's a lot of factors in it. So that's one of the things that you want to look at when you're drawing. So I have another video here on how to draw your bow with a caliper release or a wrist strap. I call them calipers, but some have hooks. I'll kind of lumped into a wrist strap release. So I'm going to go ahead and play that one for you. And we're going to, let's get this one started so I can have it up here. Second here when I get it started here. Got to get the video started. Okay, there we go. Now you should see this one here. I'm going to start off with the wrist strap that has a hook on it.
Today I'm going to show you the proper way to draw the bow. Now remember the hand grip. We're going to go in here and go down on here. Now this bow happens to have a drop away, so it's going to pull up when I shoot. That's what this little string down here is for. But I'm going to put a little pressure on there, and I'm going to hook the release. Now I'm going to show you with a caliper style release. This is my one I use here. So put your hand in here. I like to drop it down with a little pressure on the string. So you can see I pull them back, a little pressure on the string. Now I'm going to step up. Now when I get ready to draw, if I draw from here, I'm going to end up leaning back. So you want to lean a little bit forward, point your target towards, make sure I don't hit my ceiling over here. I'm going to put towards the target. You're going to do a little push with this hand as you're pulling with this one. So you're going to pull back. Okay. And now you're going to get your kisser button if you have one of those. Your peep is going to be lined up. And now then, when you get ready, you're going to put your finger over the trigger. And now that is your shot process. Okay.
Oh, start that again. We don't want to start it again. So that's the shot process I use when I'm using that wrist strap release. There's a little bit different. One thing you want to remember is always make sure you put your finger behind the trigger, because drawing it back, sometimes if you got it up above it, you're gonna hit it and it can fire. So just remember that when you get ready to draw back with a caliper type release, or if a hook style release, if it's on your wrist, you have a trigger, you touch that trigger, it will go off. So that's one of the things you want to look at when you get ready to draw, is make sure you don't have your finger on that trigger. Now, when you get into the handheld or thumb releases, that's a little bit different story. There's no way to put your finger behind the trigger because your thumb is there. You just got to make sure when you do it, you open your hand way up, push that thumb out so that you don't get close to it and draw it back that way. So let me go ahead and I'm going to share off the next video where I'm actually showing how I am going to draw my bow with handheld.
Now this one's going to be on how to draw a handheld release. Some call them a thumb release, but you don't actually fire with the thumb. Remember, I went over that earlier. So on this one here, this one I actually hang off of the string, which is the way I use it when I'm hunting, so I can find it without looking at it. But you're going to put your hand all the way in here, and now there's no place to put your thumb behind it, so you just got to remember to keep that thumb off of this trigger, because if you pull that, it will fire. So now, same process as before. Put your hand in here, get that hand position. Now, when I draw, I like to put my thumb beside it because that's not even near to the trigger. So now, as we come up and draw, the same process. Now then I can turn the release and get it to where it's going to be able to fire.
Now, if you notice in the video, or those that can't see the video, when I get ready to put my hand on the release, I actually let the top of it, where my little finger's at, go forward so I can get my hand on the other part of the release and put a little pressure on it. So that's the next step in learning is, you need to know which release you have. That handheld release or a back tension release does not have any kind of trigger. You just have to really turn it forward as you're drawing back, because just rotating that release back will fire it. And those are not beginner's releases. That's not what I'd recommend you going with to start with, just because there's too many things that can go wrong with it. And we want to make sure that you learn with something that's a little bit easier. And you can fire those caliper types releases with back tension release. I do mine all the time. It's not a problem doing it. You just got to learn the technique, and then we can teach you that too. That's not a very difficult technique to learn. So now there's a lot of things in setting the peep. Some people use a peep, some don't. I prefer to use it, but that's kind of growing up in high school as on a rifle team and using a peep sight. And, I started in archery, the string was always in my vision. And then they started off with ones that split it in three, and there's always something. So I like the peep sight. Not everybody does, but I like it. And if you don't set it right, you can have some problems. I've had them set where I'm just kind of crunching up and it's like, that's not there, where I can't really see it. And, I kind of go over that in this video here. So let's go ahead and get that one started. Go ahead and start.
Okay, now we're going to talk about how to align your peep. Where does the peep need to go? That can be a thing of problem. If it's too low, you're crunched down. If it's too high, you're trying to lean up to it. So what you want to do is you want to draw back. Okay, get your anchor point down here. Now where's the peep? You can actually see through it. Close your eyes and open them up. Be comfortable with this head, you know, where your head is positioned. You don't want to be back, you don't want to be forward, you don't want to be crunched down. You want to be nice and relaxed. Now from here, you're going to see through that peep. You should be able to see your whole front sight. And right now, this peep outlines my whole ring on my front sight.
So that's kind of the important part is if it's not adjusted correctly, you won't be able to see that front sight. You should be able to see all your pins if you're using multiple pins, or if you're using a single pin, it should be right in the center, so that as you adjust that pin, you can keep it in the center. And the smaller the pin, or the smaller the peep sight, the more accurate you're going to be, but the harder it is to see through it. In hunting situations, you don't want that little bitty small one. It's too hard to see through. You might not have good light. And then as we get older, we don't see as well anymore. So I've had to go from the small peeps to the bit larger peeps just because, you know, I'm getting older. And that is one of those things that you just have to adjust so that you can see. Now, the one thing that we have been kind of talking about, but not really complete yet. The next step in doing your shot, learning how to shoot, is what is your process. I've kind of talked a little bit about what my process is in a couple of other videos, kind of briefly. I have another little shot one, it's about 1.5 minutes long, and I go over what my shot process is. Your shot process may be different. You might be able to use that one, but the key point is do the same thing always, every time. We'll talk about that here in a second. Let me go ahead and share this video with you, and we'll get it started playing. Oh, we're going to share.
The shot process that I go through, each one of you are going to have to kind of decide on your own process, but do the same thing every time. So I normally have my bow sitting on my hip, or I've got a sling that fits in. I put my hand in the sling, drop it down with a little pressure on it. Now I'm going to lean a little bit forward and draw with my back muscles. And now I'm going to get my kisser button, touch the tip of my nose. I'm going to see my peep. Now I'm going to start taking my thumb over here and putting it on the toe.
No, it is. I put my thumb, this is the handheld release. I put my thumb on the part, not part of the trigger, so I could actually put pressure on it. And I don't have that little knurled knob on mine. I took that off because I don't use it anyway. And that way it fits back into my hand between the thumb and index, kind of that point where you start the lifeline at. That's where I put that into.
Target, or on the release. I'm going to put my pins where I want them to go. And now I'm just going to start aiming and keep pulling until it goes off. Okay, now we're going to go through the shot process. If you have a caliper type or wrist type, I'm going to use the one with the hook on it because that's what I'm used to using. And now I'm still going to go through the same thing, the same process I did with the other one. I'm going to do both sides. I'm going to put my hand in here, put a little pressure on it. Now I'm going to lean forward with my finger behind the trigger, draw back, get my kisser button lined up, my nose lined up, and my front sight. I'm going to put my finger over here on top of it. Notice how it goes clear through this other knuckle here. My fingers are all.
Okay, what I'm talking about there is you take from your knuckle in your hand, the first joint back is where I have the trigger. That way your hand's nice and relaxed. You're not stretching it out to reach for the trigger.
All relaxed. Now I'm going to put pressure. Now I'm going to start aiming and pull the back muscles.
And that is my shot process. And those watching the video, you can see I did not pull the trigger. You know, my hand was completely relaxed and it just pulled back and it went off. There's no reason to pull the trigger. I remember when I first started doing this and looking at, you know, back tension release. What is a back tension release? I didn't know what it was. At that point, I was pulling the trigger. because I didn't know any better. I'm thinking, how can you hit what you're aiming at when you don't know when it goes off? Well, as I learned, I figured out as I'm pulling the trigger, I'm not aiming. So I'm not going to hit what I'm aiming at anyway, because I stopped aiming. It's just luck where you're going to go. So that's kind of what my process is. I wanted to share some of these videos out to the group, get some discussion going. You know, how are you doing it? Are you doing it the same way I'm doing it? You doing it different? And then why are you doing it different? What ways working for you? You know, let's get some other ideas going. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm always open for new ideas. You know, it's one of those things that you're always developing and going, you know, learning new stuff. And let's just you know, get a discussion going of what's different about what you're doing, and how are you doing it, and you know, let us know why you're doing it away, and upload a video of how you're shooting, so we all get to see what you're talking about as well. Because you see my videos of me shooting, more instructional videos instead of just regular shooting. Because this one here, as long as I hit the backstop, I didn't care, because I had a concrete wall below it and my rafters above it. So I just wanted to make sure I hit the bag as well. All my task was on this one, but I'm only, you know, 10, 15 feet away from it. So I just had to make sure I hit the bag, and it's a 2-foot square bag. So I didn't have too much trouble hitting the bag. So let's get some discussion going. What are you doing different? What are you doing the same? How are you doing it? And let's get something going, and we'll talk about it. My name is Rory Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one. We'll have an interview coming up for the next one.